Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 115. This week we catch up talking a little bit about our progress. We may be talking about that really bad word called deload, which we go through different stressors on and talk a little bit about maybe it's time for me to be able to do a deload. Ben talks about possibly doing a mini cut, which I'm definitely rejecting. And we get into a little bit around stress and how you can look at creating a positive force in your own life so that you can be successful in everything you do. Tune in for this week. It was a great episode. Loved catching up, and we'll catch you all again next week.
You know that there has had to have been some sacrifice, whether it's time or nutrition or whatever it is.
Recording myself talking about having a relationship with my chest.
I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Health Podcast. Go! Dave and I are just arguing, so you're coming into the middle of an argument. First of all, I admitted that it was
friendship ending. You know, like
yeah.
We're gonna stop talking to each other.
Let me talk. I always go first.
You're the one that.
No,
you're the one.
That's what I'm just saying. I was trying to keep it. I was being honest. I admitted that I was wrong.
But then you tried pawning off of me again.
No, it makes sense. I admitted I was wrong. You
were wrong, but you the last 3 weeks apparently I've been doing the intros.
Two
you
weeks.
said 3.
No, 2.
Now you're changing the story?
No. 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks.
Is there anything you want to tell me?
You're being an asshole
Are you being truthful to me right now,
You're
Ben?
being an asshole right now. You're being an asshole right now. You're being an asshole live on the podcast. The last 2 weeks, you did the intro, and that's my bad because I was convinced that you did it. My suggestion
why would I
was
do it again this week. It doesn't make any sense for me to do this.
But you have to be finished. I'm sick of this shit. So, last week's episode that was released was episode 113.
Okay.
This episode is going to be episode 115, and the one in between is going to be the one that was recorded in Belfast. So I'm going to record the one in Belfast because I have it, and I'm going to add to it. So this will be the next week's one.
But technically, if we wanted to catch up, you should do the next 2 weeks.
Then stop living in the past. We're going from today.
Just gonna move forward. We can't talk about like the previous arguments before. No, we just got to move forward. Yeah.
Yes, you just got to move forward.
Just my relationship here.
You just got to move forward. So I'll accept your apology.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this podcast is going to be solely Ben because I'm going to sit here with my hands like this the entire time and just judge everything you say. So.
Good. Well, what I'm going to do is just update your training program live.
Oh, man, I'm going to update your training program as well. So let me get shit. Let's try.
Right. Anyway, back to scheduled programming. What's up, dude?
Listen, I think I'm coming close to the D word, man. I think I'm coming close to the D word.
Okay, discuss. D for discuss.
Yeah, it's a deep episode. We're gonna have to go through like my
episodes.
We might actually have to record 2 episodes just to go through like my emotional progression to get through this, to get to the point where maybe I decide or not, and then kind of come back and then maybe forward again. So
okay,
but it has been a very long time since I have done a deload. It's been actually a very long time since I've done a deload. And, with all of the stress, which we're going to be talking about today, with travel and everything else, and the heavy lifting programs, and most specifically, DDP yoga just screwed me over. I mean, it's like, no, I was kidding. it was intense though. And when I start to know, everybody's different. Some people will schedule deloads in a certain period of time. And what we're talking about deloads, by the way, is your central nervous system needs time to essentially recuperate from large amounts of stress that you're putting on your body through weightlifting. And so your body starts to break down over a period of time, and you need to give it a little bit of a break. And there's a few different ways of doing it. You could do, lower percentage weights, not to your max, lower than you would be for a week, just to kind of give your muscles a break. Or you could just take kind of cold turkey, a couple days off, week off, so that you have time to recover. And for me, when I start to notice that I have issues is, one, I don't recover as fast. So, when I go into, a workout routine or things like that, I'm still sore, I'm still hurting. But the big thing is I actually get like these pains in my forearms and my bones, basically, it starts to ache whenever I do resistance training. And that's when I really know it's time to give a break. And I've had those for the past 2 days, and I've tried to like ignore them and pretend they weren't there. And it hasn't worked out for me. So I was actually at Orange Theory today, and So Monday, this is actually a funny story. So Monday, my son Mason decided he had the day off for like Teachers Day or something like that, and he decided he wanted to go to Orange Theory with us, at like 8:15 in the morning. And so we went to Orange Theory, and I had to show him that his dad was the strongest person in the world, and so I was doing 12 miles per hour sprints at 15% incline to where the instructor came over and was like, "Oh my god, like I've never seen this before. This is ridiculous. Like, how are you even doing this?" And my son's like, I'm like, "See, buddy, strongest person ever." And so I had to prove a point. I had to let my son know that I could whoop his ass anytime, and he's not even close. And so, but I haven't recovered since then. I've been literally so sore, and
but it was worth it.
But it was worth every second.
Yes, that's okay. Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell him I'm sore.
No, absolutely not.
No, in fact, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to go lift downstairs and like take a nap on the floor in the gym. But no, I think it's time that I do a deload. But it's been a good, solid, week. Had a lot of work that I got done over at Binary Defense and Trusted Sec. I got some travel to Wild West Hacking Fest on Friday, but I think that's the last of my major travel schedule that I have. I had like one little thing in Chicago, but I think I'm winding down for the rest of the year, which, man, the month of September and October has been just one blur of travel. But we also get an exchange student coming from Spain tomorrow, so we'll have an exchange student for the next 10 days. 16-year-old boy. ¿Cómo estás? There we go. I'm good, right? That's all I need.
That's all you need.
Well, then you got like uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, right? Yeah, margarita, right? I can keep going, right? I can keep going.
Margarita.
Margarita. You gotta say like in Spanish.
You gotta get your accent.
Yeah, margarita. Yeah. But I got a little sombrero hat and everything. No, I'm excited for him to come over though, and give him a little bit of experience of the United States. And my son will be going over to Spain next year, so this will be a nice little foray into that. So that'll be interesting. I'm a 16-year-old boy in our house with all teenagers, so I'm gonna be locking the doors and hiding the booze. But other than that, it's pretty good, man. How about yourself? Dude, speaking of which, I'm down to 232. I think we got to push Cal's, man.
Right. Okay.
Anyways, we'll talk about it later.
Yes, push Cal's. Well, actually, I want to talk about it, and I sort of hinted at it whenever I text you early on. You just shut me right down.
Trust the bulk. Hashtag trust the bulk.
Yes, hashtag trust the bulk. Yes, okay, of course. But in line with you knowing your body and when it's time to use the D word, I know my body, and I believe, and it's up to you because you're the coach, so whatever. I believe I'm in the position that it is potentially time to run a little bit of a mini cut.
So you're saying bump up to 4,500 cals?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Because that's what I was getting with that. Yeah.
Open for discussion, but I just feel like I'm in that spot. Now, this could be where you come in and you just talk me off the ledge and just say, shut the fuck up and get on with it. I'm totally fine with that. But I just have felt over the past week or so that it might be time to pull back. But again, like I said, it's completely up to you.
Well, in all honesty, let's do this right now. How's your strength been? How's your energy been? How's your motivation been?
Well, my strength has been very good. Like really good. Like I have felt strong, and the gym feels easy.
So I mean, well, yeah. I'll take a look at check-in photos too. To see where you're at.
That's what I'm saying. Like the check, like the strength. Truthfully, and this is a pretty good point to touch on because I've genuinely had this conversation 4 times within the past 5 days of people who are either like mid surplus phase moving into a surplus and they're like starting to question everything. So it's good that I'm in that position too.
Yeah.
This feeling of uncomfortableness is part of the process, and I am totally fine with it because I definitely feel and see the benefits of when I'm in the gym. Like I feel strong, things are easy. I feel, I'll not use your phrasing, but my body feels good. I feel full. I feel strong. I feel good after my session. So things like that are good. Energy levels, good for the most part. Lower, I would say, if I have a big meal because just like digestion and some of the meals I'm having are quite big. That could just be a case of changing up how I do my food and have smaller meals and split it throughout the day. So there are easy fixes to it. How is motivation? We don't rely on motivation in this house, dude. It's discipline. So we just get the shit done regardless of how we're feeling. So
listen, I'll take a look at check-in photos. The only thing I will say is, our goal, we both said this at the very beginning, and you're right. Normally we would go through a little bit of a mini cut when you start to get to a certain point. However, the whole goal of this was to try to put on as much mass as possible during this period of time, get uncomfortable to the point where we haven't been before, and then start to pull us back. And you have to remember that, like, I'm going through the same thing, although I keep losing weight, which pisses me off. But, you know, I'm not in the same position yet, but I will be, especially when I start getting into like the 240s and 250s. I'm going to be questioning life itself at that point, you know, and what I'm doing. But, you know, this is an experiment to see, can we push ourselves to the max, get uncomfortable with ourselves in a weight. And by the way, you have always enjoyed the ability of being relatively lean. You know, I don't think I've ever seen non-lean Ben, right? I mean, you know, you've gone through bulking phases before where you put on but you've never been, you know, non-lean Ben. So, you know, is your concern that you're getting out of control and you need to put a little bit more confines in place because you feel like you're getting
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Like, I think maybe I've worked out what's going on here. You have now become my coach, and you're going to get me out of shape, and you're going to be in shape, and you'll be like, listen, this guy doesn't really know what he's talking about.
All along. This has been my plan all along. I'm like, I need to get Ben so where I'm now the figurehead in the industry for being the most amazing.
I knew.
And then Ben's going to be like, he's going to look like Fat Thor in Avengers. So.
To be fair, if I had Thor arms, I would probably be all right, but I would grow my hair as well. Right.
Well, so no, but I mean, at the same time, what I would say is that, you know, we know based on the recent studies, as well as what we see from a surplus of maintenance, is that, you know, staying in a maintenance or slight surplus is a good thing for building muscle, and we still want to get stronger, and you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
So let's just I'll take a look at the photos and where we're at, but I may need to talk you off the ledge and keep pushing a little bit. Maybe not push calories as much, but, you know, maybe keep you off the ledge a little bit.
What I'll say is two things that we could look at. Number one, but this is for both of us, a little bit more refinement in our training plans. We both need to do that. The second thing, look a little, and I can do this for you as well if you want, but I'm thinking that this might be a good exercise for you as a coach. Look at the way my meals are set up, and or give me some sort of structure for meals, whether that's specific calories per meal, or specific macros per meal, or specific meals per meal, to split it throughout the day. Because not all the time, but definitely sometimes I'm eating meals that are like 1,500 calories, which is fine, but the feeling after is not good. Like I'm in a headspace that I can do it. Like if it's put down in front of me, like I see it almost as a challenge. I can get through the food. I know I have to get the calories in. Like I don't have a problem with that at all. But it could be a good note for us to look into that to be slightly better. And I will say, I did Jill's check-in today. Number one, I don't know if you saw, she posted a photo of her back in the Discord.
That's amazing.
Right. Actually got me excited last night when I saw it to train today.
I'll tell you, people don't understand how hard it is to develop your back. Like, I've been training now for 3 years solid on back, and I feel like I'm finally starting to make progress on my back where I never had before. Like, like, I have no back. And all of a sudden, like, now I have back muscles, but it's taken forever for those.
Yeah. But she put in her check-in today, and this sort of came off the back of a conversation that we had on the call a couple of weeks ago, and I sort of challenged everybody to look at their foods and see how in line with 80% whole foods, 20% not whole foods that people were. And there are a couple of people who are actively trying to do more, and she was one of them. She's like, it's amazing how much more food you get, but also how much hungrier she was, which I thought was an interesting observation. So it could just be a case of I need to just stop fucking eating bagels and just eat more like proper foods, because I do fill a lot of my calories with bagels, and I'm happy to admit that. So we can deal with that and check in, but that's where I'm at with that. Aside from all of that, things are good, dude. I relaunched, posted about the Hacks 2.0, which will be cool. I've been doing a lot of like recording stuff with Ryan for that. We've been chatting a little bit more back and forward about doing some longer form YouTube stuff, and he was like, I'll just take charge of it if you want. I was like, all right, cool. So you're just going to turn up and tell me what we're going to talk about that day, and you'll just record it, put it together, and put it in YouTube. And he was like, yeah. I was like, cool, ideal. So we're going to start that at the end of the month. We'll also be able to incorporate others into that. So like, obviously, whenever I'm over there, we can do stuff. Travis can do stuff with Helmy, stuff with the team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's plenty of stuff planned for that. But yeah, like training is feeling good. I'm starting to get the bits and pieces booked for Phoenix. I know you haven't fully confirmed it, but I'm assuming that you're coming. We're sitting at 34 people total for Phoenix, and I'm still waiting on about 23 people to get back to me. So they have
another
9 days, 27th of February to the 3rd of March.
27th of February, I'm sure.
I have booked the first Airbnb, and the second one will depend on how many other people are coming. So they've got 9 days from today to let me know. But either way, regardless, it's going to be the biggest event that we have. Sean is confirmed, so he's going to come and do some in-person breathwork stuff. Travis is coming, so he's going to coach. Adam will obviously be there as a coach, second set of ears and eyes for me. Obviously, Ram will be there.
27th and the 4th?
27th of February to the 3rd of March.
3rd. So the 4th of March.
Yeah, the 4th,
yeah. Yeah, definitely 4th. Yeah.
The 4th of March then. And Kira is going to come too and do some mindset stuff. So there's quite a few people coming with me this time. And there's already a couple of people here coming from this side of the world as well. So it will not just be all Americans. So it's going to be the best one yet. For anybody who wants to get involved, the only way you can come to these things is if you're part of the team. So come join us. You can hang out. We can, I don't know what we're going to get up to in Phoenix, but definitely some training, definitely some hiking, definitely some mindset stuff, definitely some breathwork stuff. Ryan and I have a couple of other cool ideas for, I'm not going to let everybody in. You'll see whenever we get there. But aside from that, I'm sort of getting back into the flow with having an event.
Maybe that special thing we talked about that, we can't talk about potentially.
Oh, definitely that special thing that we talked about that we can't talk about. That one's 100%. Yeah. And there's the other special thing that Ryan spoke to me about that I'll tell you about after this because we can't talk about it on this.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely
that.
You know about that special thing.
Yeah, for sure. But we can't talk about it. But yeah, no, things good. Absolutely zero complaints. I'm really enjoying training in terms of how I feel. We'll discuss the rest of that in check-in.
I am too. Like, minus the soreness, it's definitely the strongest.
Minus the soreness, the inability to recover, the fact that you can't use your forearms.
Yeah.
Apart from all that stuff, and then needing to deload. Apart from all, it's good.
It's funny because yesterday I got, of course, new gym equipment in and a new bicep and tricep machine. And by the way, amazing. So I got the Life Fitness ISO bicep curl. So it puts the pressure basically on your tricep. Yep. And forces you to come up and use 100% of your tricep without any form issues. And so I used that yesterday and it felt really, really good. And then the tricep machine is the Nautilus tricep machine, where it's kind of like a preacher curl. Your hands are over and you push down on it, and really good isolation of the tricep muscle there. And so I did push day yesterday, and it was definitely a good addition to the gym. But I was carrying it down with Dom yesterday, and I noticed like halfway, because in order to get into my dang gym, I have to like walk down the side of the garage into the back, through grass and everything with this dolly. And Dom's basically balancing it so I don't die. And then me, I'm just in the bottom because I don't want him to die if there's an accident. So I'm going to die if there's anything. And and we get down to the bottom, and my forearms were just like screaming, like, dude, I got to take a break. He's like, you want me to just go in the back? I'm like, nah, man, like I don't want you to to die if something bad happens. So I'm just gonna keep going. And it was 2 pieces of equipment, so it took a little bit of time, but we got through there, rearranged the gym, got it all put in. But I will tell you, the training has been really good. I mean, I'm really close to that 585 deadlift. And what was great is Dom came over yesterday and gave me a couple pointers on. It's interesting, when you talk about correct form in deadlifts, there's not actually a correct form in deadlifts. Now hear me out.
I agree with you right away.
Yeah, there's ways not to do things, but there's so many variables that people don't understand about a deadlift. How well you have hip mobility. Are you doing sumo versus trap versus conventional? How tall are you? How long are your arms versus your body length versus your leg length? There's a lot of different variables that go into deadlifts. And to say one is right or the other is ridiculous, because as long as you're lifting with your glutes and your hammies, with obviously you're going to have a lift with your posterior chain, your the rest of your back, your lats, your quads. But the lift is supposed to be designed to put as much ample pressure, full body distributed, but mostly on your glutes and hammies. Okay. When specifically talking about conventional deadlift, sumo has a little bit more quads, but still, again, predominantly glutes and hammies based. Now, what's interesting is, if you look at like Eddie Hall, for example, when he does a deadlift, Eddie Hall will granted he's relatively shorter than I am, but he's still a big boy. And when he goes down, he grabs the bar and he like rocks back to where he's basically like sitting down in a chair. Okay. And that's how I've always done it. Because to me, that allows me to maintain neutral spine, and it allows me to keep enough tension on the bar, but enough to where I can get a good momentum to be able to get lift off and then eventually complete. However, what I've noticed is once I get to, these higher, deadlift ranges around 550, I'm having trouble locking out. And the reason for that is because I'm rocked back so much, the amount of space that it takes me to go from the floor and then kind of rock my body back this way, if you're looking at the screen, I'm just rocking my body backwards. It's a much more longer distance because I'm having to basically readjust my hips as I'm coming up. So, Dom gave me some really good pointers yesterday that I'm going to try to incorporate, where it's more so I'm bending over, still neutral spine, but more bent over and straight to where really I'm just coming up and I'm just literally lifting like this. And so the distance between the ground and to where I need to lock out is substantially lower, but I'm substantially shorter, but I'm not having to readjust my hips to get that space and then have that rocking issue that you see when you see me, those when I run my max, I'm rocking to get it back because I've had to travel so far. And so, a couple things I'm going to incorporate to do it. But what I keep realizing is, anybody that says, you're doing a deadlift wrong, really has no idea that there's 1,000 different ways to do a deadlift based on your body type, your form, your technique, how you look at things. Now, again, there are ways to not do it, arching your back, lifting with your lower back, things that may be prone to injury. What we're trying to accomplish here is to do a lot of heavy weight and reduce any type of impact for injury while you're doing this, or at least create a low risk situation for that. And so, with this, I've learned a little bit more differences of how I might be able to potentially pull a little bit more weight. So it's cool to get some feedback from, a power lifter that's hitting this much. And obviously you have suggested this before too in the past, but I did the switch to conventional has been, I think one of the best things I've ever done now that I have much more lower back strength, which was always prone to injury before. And so it's always like finding these modifications and things you can do to improve, a lift that you might have been very comfortable with at one point in time, and you're kind of rebuilding it now because you're going into a whole different ballgame than you haven't before. And it doesn't suit you to get there, right? And you have to morph and change to get to that point.
Agree. And actually, maybe not specific for deadlift, but one of the points that we touched on whenever we had the event over here, and I was chatting back and forth with the helmet about it, as you physically grow, the way that you need to move needs to change. So your body will move in slightly different ways. So even if you think about your chest, for example, because there is physically more muscle in your chest, and because of the shape of that muscle, things that you will have to do, things you have to do now will be different because there is physically more muscle there. Yes, a lot of them are advantageous to gaining more muscle, which is absolutely ideal, but things do need to take into consideration more muscle that you do add. Quick note, Eddie Hall, he's actually 6'3", so he's not that short. He just looks short because he is wide.
I didn't realize he was 6'3". So he's same as me. Okay, interesting.
But he did weigh well over 400 pounds whenever he did that 500 kilo deadlift. He was a big fucking boy at that stage.
Insane.
But built for, like, truly built for deadlifts. While we're touching on the subject of the 585, there are a couple of things that I want to set that I want to do by the end of the year. And I text Tommy the other day. Number one, I want to get those 50 kilo dumbbells shoulder press, so 110 pounds. Did not get those today, but I think they're there. I would say definitely I will have those done by the end of the year.
That's insane, by the way.
Good though. I mean, I haven't, I haven't pressed anything over my head, because you think whenever we're at your house, I don't do overhead press and all that sort of stuff.
110 pounds from an overhead press perspective, just in general, is insane, right? I don't even know if I can do that, to be honest with you. And second, the fact that you had lingering injuries there, whenever we would work out, you'd be like, hey, let's not do this because I don't want to re-injure, my shoulders. The fact that you're able to overcome them and get into heavy weights again and feeling good is freaking awesome, dude. And same with me, my shoulder, feeling great. I haven't had an issue in months, because I've curtailed my training to be different, right?
I will say this. So the video that I sent you, Dave had just texted me. I just picked the dumbbells up. Dave texted me and, what are you up to? I was like, I'm potentially about to do something stupid in the gym here, stand by. But I got them up. Obviously, one of the biggest issues whenever it comes to dumbbell shoulder press is actually getting them into position. They felt okay. I got them to like elbows just below shoulders, and I started to feel myself twist into it. I was like, that's where it's going to be bad. So definitely aware. So long story short, want to get them for like at least 8 reps before the end of the year. I also want to get 65 kilo dumbbell chest press, which is 145 pounds. I don't know how far away I'm at because the dumbbells go from 55 to 65. So I need like the in-between one. So I'm going to need to go and hang out with Helmy for a couple of weeks in his gym. But I do think it'll be there if I focus on it. So there are 2 things that I want to do.
That's awesome. It's great. I've talked about the deadlift issue with my back, right? Well, a lot of you may not know if you haven't listened to the podcast for all the years, is that, when I first started, Ben had me switch from doing conventional to sumo because I was prone to lower back injuries that I've had throughout my career, and most specifically to the abuse that I put on my body when I was in the military. And so, I've had lower back issues, like sitting in cars, for example, would be painful. Going down to pick something small up and yanking my back and being out of commission for 2 months. And I remember I did some deadlifts. This was about 2.5 years ago. And, I was doing some deadlifts, and then I went to go have another business that's basketball training facilities. We're moving one facility to the other. And I picked up like a 30-pound, it was a baseball pitching machine. And I literally picked up this 30-pound thing and I threw out my back, and I was out of commission for like a month and a half. My back, it was the most painful I think I've ever been, my back. And, you have to look at those and say, well, how do I move around that? And how do I build the muscles around my injury and ailment without re-injuring myself? And you can definitely do that. There are so many different ways of addressing previous injuries without having to do surgery, without having to readjust your body in some way, shape, or form, or just to say, F it, I'm not going to do anything at all. And so my lower back and my right shoulder have always been prone to tearing and injury. And I can honestly say, since I moved off of barbell bench press and more towards kabuki bars, and which is a slightly angled neutral bar grip on bench, more natural, removes the strain of your shoulders, as well as the dumbbell presses, chest presses. Those have completely eliminated my shoulder injuries. And then rack pulls were the miracle workout thing that Ben introduced me to, that really completely shot my strength up to all new heights that I'd never done before, because my posterior chain then now had ample muscle and support around my back. And the ability to really lift heavy weights and feel it and feel comfortable with it, essentially doing half the movement. If you've never done rack pull before, you literally have the bar basically sitting, usually about ankle height, maybe a little bit more. Sorry, not ankle height, not around your knee. Sorry. And so when you're doing a deadlift, it's going to be more around your ankle, which is what I meant to say. And so with the deadlift, you're pulling from your ankles all the way up to above your knee, right to your quad area. Whereas rack pull is just a very small movement, very, very, very small movement from your knee up. So it's kind of like a half deadlift. And it's going to be primarily putting most of the strain on your lower back, as well as your lats and upper back. And so with that, I was able to really start to push some heavy weights with that, but in a very controlled fashion that I didn't injure my back. I wasn't doing fully bent over, deadlifts or RDLs or things like that could potentially injure it, and built up my back over time. And that's been that one exercise alone from a rack pull perspective, not only fixed my back injury issues, but my deadlift shot up like 100 pounds in a month just by doing those specific exercises. And then from there, it's continued to progress. So if you get chances of doing rack pulls, one of my favorite exercises to build up lower back and your strength.
For sure. And I think that to give the understanding of the why, generally, whenever it comes to lower back issues, it's not always your back is the problem. There is a weak link somewhere in that posterior chain. It will just present itself usually in your back. So strengthening through hamstrings, glutes, lower back, mid, upper back will always help. And obviously the rack pull allows you to do that. It almost like, the best way I can describe it is it's like getting your hamstrings and your glutes and your lower back to communicate to each other so they work as one, because you can really lock in at that, like what essentially is the bottom of that movement, but with the bar like in at your knees. You can feel your hamstrings on, you can feel your glutes on, you just come up into that top part of the movement. So it gets those all to communicate a little bit better, which means whenever you translate that into pulling from the floor, it helps a lot in that situation. And you'll know, especially whenever you're doing a deadlift, there's a point in it that you know whether you've got the rep or not. And it's usually below where you do the rep pull. So if you can't get to that, you're not getting it. And it's like, that's where, number one, you're at your weakest mechanically whenever you're at the bottom, which means you're most set, like that's where it's the most difficult. And then obviously whenever you come past that point of where you're in the rep pull, you move into where your strongest are. So you know where that point is. And then that's obviously where it takes over from the bits that we did with the rep pull as well.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's funny because when I'm getting into like the 550 pluses, the first time I go to pull the weight, so I gradually build up. So I'll go from like 315 to 415 to 515. Then I get to like 550, and then I try to do the pull of like 575, 585. When I get to like 550, the first time I go to pull and lift, it feels like it's 1,000,000 pounds and I can't lift it. Then I realize, oh, I've done this before, it's okay. So then I take a second, pause, and then I lift it and it works. So it's all a mind game in many cases what you're doing. But again, maintaining form and technique, even when you're getting into like your 90%, type of situation with how far you can lift, and getting to like your 1 rep max situation, you're gonna have some bend in form, but as long as you're maintaining a lot of the dynamic, form techniques and not arching your back and not yanking, pulling. Trying to maintain as consistency as you can. Some ebb and flow and give is okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I think 2 things as well. Whenever you're on the way up to like testing that out, you will know on the day whether it's there or not. And I would definitely recommend being in tune with that, because if you're going in and you have in your head that you're going to PR and insert whatever exercise, and you're coming up and your warm-up sets in, you can feel that you're not like fully locked in, or you don't fully have the connection, or the energy's not there, or whatever, do push it until you get close to what it is to see whether it is there. But if your body's telling you, or you have a thought that it's not, like immediately, for myself anyway, immediately when I go into that, if I've like, oh, it just doesn't feel right, or I'm not getting it in here, or I feel something slightly off in insert whatever body part, or I'm not fully locked in, or whatever it is, if I go into that top set with that mindset, I know I'm not getting it anyway. So it's like I've already, I've failed because of my mind going into it, but it's my body that has told me it. So do be a little bit in tune with that, because that's whenever you start to set yourself up. And actually, I will say this, the one time that I did hurt my back doing deadlifts with Helmy, of course, he was like, he said, so I got up and I was like, the last rep, and whenever I stopped, he was like, he didn't have that last rep. And I was like, well, no shit. Like, I'm lying here fucking absolutely cabbaged on the floor. Of course I didn't have it. But you knew before you went into it, you didn't have it. So don't do it. I'm like, all right, fair enough. Lesson learned. Well, I just lie here. Please phone me an ambulance. I didn't need an ambulance. It was fine. But yes, it's like being confident that you have the reps. You should know going into it, you have it, whether you have it or not.
Yeah. And it's a methodical way of gradually increasing, right? It's not like I'm going from like 500 and trying 575.
That's why I used to do it. I used to forget that there was plates in between. They just only use 20 kilos, but 45-pound plates. I'm like, oh, this seems a lot heavier.
Yeah, it's always gradual. And, if you're able to complete 575, well, good chance you'll probably come close to 585. You want to keep trying that, right? And keep going up in weight. And then obviously we're talking large numbers here. So if you're at, 200 and, you throw in 210, it's always about progressing and getting forward as you start to go through and build your muscles up. And, everybody's like, well, how do you know if you're actually adding muscle? Well, if you're going up in weight, you're going up in muscle. So, that's the simple rule of thumb, is that if you've gotten stronger with lifting weights, you've gotten stronger with muscle as well. So you always know that you'd be adding muscle if you're moving up in weight as well.
Speaking of muscle, this is something that we probably should have touched on. Can we take a second for your Halloween costume? Would a previous version of Dave seen himself at a party basically run about in his underwear?
Nothing. No way. Absolutely not. Not even a chance. It was so for those that are like, what, Dave in his underwear? So I basically wore in the military, there's these things called silkies, which are like really thin nylon, underwear basically that you'd work out with in the Marines or military. And so I wore those, and they were probably a size too small than they should have been. And then I had, the rock belt, the Brahma belt, and then I had fake eyebrows, and, I had elbow pads and everything. I dressed up as a rock essentially. And, it's funny because I felt super comfortable, super confident, super strong wearing that the entire night. And I had no issue whatsoever wearing it. It was fine. It was a little cold towards the end of the night when it's like, getting kind of kind of cold outside, and we go outside and it's just like freezing. But other than that, man, it was fun to be able to be 41 years old and have no issue with my body comp. And by the way, being in a bulk, I'm not, shredded with 6-pack of abs anymore, but I'm still pretty lean.
Also not far away.
Not far away. No, not at all.
Good.
Yeah, it was really cool to get to that position and to have that confidence. But I feel that all the time. It's not just, when I'm not wearing a shirt and I'm wearing very, very tight silkies. When I walk into a room, I feel strong. I feel confident. When I, am driving, I feel strong and confident. It's just a mentality that eventually kind of changes and transmorphs you. And it's taken a long time to get there, right? With this bulk, I'm not concerned at all. Like, I'm literally not concerned at all. And I'm not, you're in a different spot, obviously, but I feel like at any time, I just need to tell myself, listen, it's time to taper off of food and move down and go this way. And it'll come off, right? And I know that if I don't try to eat, I will just lose weight. Like, it's because I've built so much muscle mass that my body just burns so much stuff, but I'm still focusing on protein. And so, I just lose weight if I don't pay attention. And so, it's a great position to be in. It's taken years to get there, but it's one of those things where I am truly confident in myself. And that's not just because I have a physique perspective. It's the amount of time that I put into my body, to my mental health, to my family, to everything else, that I'm confident in what I do. And it's helped me in business. It's helped me, obviously in the gym. And it's awesome to see, my son the other day. So the Brahma belt became the PR belt. So anytime you PR, you get to wear the belt. And so Gavin has a picture of him doing a PR on a squat, and he's got the Brahma belt on, and, he's, it's awesome to have that influence in your kids' lives as well. And Mason just told me the other day, it was funny. He's like, Dad, when you gave that, I gave a talk, it was last winter. And the kid, Mason's like, the kids still talk about how jacked my dad is. And like, most of the kids used to pick on me, don't pick on me anymore because they're scared of you. I'm like, that's good. Glad to hear that.
And you're like, I'm so much more jacked now a year later.
I'm so much bigger than I was before. So like, once you see me now, like, I'll be a monster, but it's cool to be in that position. I feel great.
I mean, good. And I think the thing about it is, like, I'll always say the position that you're in now, I don't want to say it's easy because that isn't necessarily true, but because you put the work in, because you put the time in, because you've made the effort to build the muscle, build the routines and habits, it's much easier now.
Yes. 100%.
And even whenever it comes to food, like, you can quote unquote get away with more because there physically is more. You've like all the stuff that we've talked about before about building muscle mass and the benefits and blah blah blah. It's like that for anybody who's listening who's not in that position, where whenever they when they go off plan, or whenever they don't eat enough, they don't lose weight, or whenever they're trying to gain weight, it's difficult. It just takes time and literal reps and like literally being consistent for going on over 3 years now. And I think that is, it's just a credit to the work you've put in. And I remember so many times being in the gym whenever I worked in the gym floor, and I used to be so frustrated that I'm like, I'm eating 4,500 calories and I'm just losing weight. And I'm like talking to fat loss clients, and in their head they're going, sometimes this wasn't in their head, they just told me like, you're a dick. I'm like, well, I'm doing everything that I need to do to move towards my goal, and it's not happening. It's tough. It's just not the same situation that you're in. So yes, I get it. It is a lot of maintenance whenever it comes to food. And I'm the same. Like, if I do not hit my calories, I will lose weight. And yes, okay, a part of that is just not actually having the food in my system, but again, part of the process.
Well, you've always been able to shed weight when you need to, but also a lot of it's been discipline too. I mean, the Food Network comes out, and you go into that
the
zone.
whole system happens. I know exactly what's going. Yeah, I know exactly what's going down.
And same for me. It's like, the first day. It's fun. I mentioned before on the podcast, but like when we started our cutting phase for I shouldn't use the word cutting. So when I started my slight deficit phase,
no, cutting's okay. We just don't like bulk. We just like if they're bulk, we can say cutting. But
so when I started my cutting phase, it was a Wednesday, and the night before I was eating whatever, and Aaron's like, I get my check-in video from you, and it's already halfway through the day or something before I got to look at it, and it's like, hey, it's time to cut. You're
like a spoonful, like, oh shit. Oh.
Well, and then Aaron's like, hey, let's go out for ice cream with the kids. I'm like, cool, but I'm not getting anything. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I'm starting a cutting phase. She's like, oh, you don't have the calories? I'm like, nope. and I'm not going to do it. So like, it's like just that day, that switch, it's like no problem. That's it. I had some nice times where I was able to eat, copious amounts of food and whatever I needed to, but it's time for me to get back into action and get into the mindset. And I just flip that switch and it just moves forward. So it's like, it's that easy. And it's like anything, people get accustomed to never being hungry, right? People get accustomed to eating highly caloric, non-dense foods, i.e. non-whole foods. And that's normal. So you're training that muscle to get, that sensation of being full all the time. The same thing goes the exact opposite way. You train yourself to be able to flip a switch and be hungry, and you're okay with that. That's a different muscle that you're flexing and you're working out in your mind that allows you to go and do that essentially as you develop and build these habits. So for me, it's like, it's just literally a light switch, and, it's either surplus, in the middle, maybe maintenance, and then some deficit, and that's it. It's just a switch. And regardless of what, what I'm going through, what I'm doing, I don't really have like days where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to break this, deficit. I just stay within the kind of the system that I'm built into. And I'm like, I'm okay if I don't, if I have an urge for pizza that day, I'm like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll just eat tomorrow's pizza. That's it. And it'll be good, my protein goals. But it's finding what you can do in your own system that works for you and building those habits up slowly over time that eventually become things that you can do on a regular basis. Like I don't know how, knock on wood, I don't know how I could ever let myself go again to get to where I was at in either way, super skinny Dave or super big Dave. Like I just so ingrained into who I am today in my DNA that, I'll sustain this forever.
Agree. And I think that what you're saying there about the nutrition, like I literally texted you the other day, I'm like, do you know what? Like, it's not that difficult to eat 3,700 calories. At the start, it was like I really had to be very conscious, and I do still need to be conscious, but it's like, I just know that I need to execute it, and that's it. And it's been fine. And if you do say tomorrow you're going to eat 4,500 calories, I'm like, all right, okay, let's do it. So 4,500 calories from tomorrow, perfect.
I was thinking about maybe 5,000, just to be honest with you.
I actually thought, I don't know if I said this to you directly, but I have definitely spoken about it, and I need to okay it by you. You know the way you see these like TikTok people and YouTube people, and they're like, oh, I'm going to eat the rock stat for a day, and they go through all the different meals. I'm like, I wonder, I might do Helmi's diet for a week, like eat Helmi's food for a week, his exact, like his calories, his food, his exact meals for a week, just to see how it feels, because it might feel.
Well, Helmi eats very clean.
Yeah, right? really clean, like super clean.
Yeah, that's impressive. I don't know if I could. We should all do it. Just make it a challenge.
All right,
Helmi challenge.
Let's do it. I'll text him right now. I say, can you send me? And I say, well, I'll send him a voice note so that it's legit, so that everybody knows that we're doing it. Helmi, I'm recording the podcast with Dave here, and him and I are both going to do your diet for a week. Can you send us through exact diet? We'll eat your calories, your meals. We're going to do it for a week.
Love you, Helmi.
I can't hear you. Dave says, love you, Helmi. There you go. So we'll do that for a week. Would not recommend. There's a bit in the... There's a bit... I did send you the Vegas after movie. Two things actually on that as well. There's a bit in it, would not recommend at home. You said, don't do this, don't try this at home, kids, would not recommend. This is one of those things as well. In line with that, there are 2 Easter eggs, one in the Pittsburgh movie and one in the Vegas movie. Ram was very concerned that nobody would know to look for them. So this is me telling everybody that they are there. I'm going to release the Pittsburgh one probably before this goes out, and the Vegas one after. They will be on the YouTube. So keep an eye out for those things. Anybody who finds it, sees us, tweet us at WeHackAlv. I'm disappointed that nobody gave us our wrestling names either. No one tweeted us our wrestling names from last week's conversation. Maybe they're really thinking about it.
Yeah, I think like the hacker is like the perfect one for me. But that's just whatever.
But what would your finishing move be?
I don't know. I have to think about that.
Do like the 0 day?
Yeah. That'd be a good one. The 0 day. That sounds good to me. But well, we did want to talk, for the last few minutes we have of the podcast, a little bit about positivity and stress, right? Because we're getting to that time of year, which many folks don't realize is that you start to lose a little bit of that thing called sunshine, unless you're living in some crazy place like California or where it's sunshine all the time. But
or Australia, sunshine, you're just getting more sunshine.
That's right. So sunshine, vitamin D happens to be one of the the biggest things, what most folks don't realize is that vitamin D really isn't actually a vitamin. It's a hormonal component that impacts a large percentage of our DNA. And vitamin D is everything from, body repair, immune system, positivity. When you have a lack of vitamin D, you get depressed. You have just so many different issues, bone development, et cetera, et cetera. And so, we're going to be lacking of sun. So one thing is, up your vitamin D dosages if you can. But two, it's around the time, especially in the wintertime, where we may not be as active and social with people, which can also lead to additional stressors in our lives. And so, we got to look at how do we manage stress throughout the year, and how do we reduce stress in our lives. And we've talked a little bit about how we're kind of designed as human beings, and our bodies our minds interpret stress in very different ways. I mean, our stressors today are very different than the stressors of 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago. We don't have to forage for our food and hunt bears and, defend our families from other opposing tribes and things like that. So, we have very different stressors today, but, our stressors now are, hey, am I going to, be able to make, enough money to support my family? Or, oh my gosh, taxes are coming out. Oh my gosh, do I get this, double fudge chocolate brownie sundae smoothie in a large or extra large? So our stressors are a little bit different, but it's still stressors, and they still impact our body in negative ways. And there are things in our lives that can absolutely make them worse, which could be everything from, people we surround ourselves with to, the work that we deal with and how we actually look at life. And, I was actually looking at, or when I was with Diamond Dallas Page last week, he had mentioned that one of the things that he does is really coax or train people to be positive first thing in the morning. And that has a huge impact on their overall stressors. And for example, do I go to work and say, God, I don't want to go to work? Or do I go to work and say, God, I can't wait to get to work? And, it's just the differences of perspectives and looking at things, that make a big difference in our minds. If we're used to just being negative all the time, we'll be a negative person. We'll have a lot of stress. We have to look at different ways of trying to enhance positivity in our lives and change ourselves in a way that allows us to be successful. And it's funny because I went to a comedy show recently with Aaron, and I didn't realize it was outdoors, and it was 46 degrees, and I was wearing a t-shirt, and I froze my ass off, as did Aaron. And, I bought front row tickets, and I'd never been to this person's comedy show. It was a Bill Burr comedy show, and I wasn't really familiar with him, but I knew he was kind of famous. And, we love comedy shows and just having a lot of fun. And, but what was in one of the skits that he had was, he's like, I've been married for 20 years. And finally, I just decided to not make everything such a big deal and just basically say, yes, honey, to everything. And he's like, I don't know why I never thought of this before, because things are so much easier now. Like, we don't get into fights. Our love life is 1,000 times better. And obviously he's going pretty vulgar in most of these things. And he's like, but just by that one change in my marriage, I'm now, like, he's like, why did I ever get mad at these things in the first place? Like, when my wife would ask me, would you want to go out to dinner tonight? I'd be like, oh man, like, I got so much stuff going on and I'm just tired. I just want to relax at home. Now I'm like, sure, honey, let's go to dinner. She's like, oh, really? Yeah, let's go. And then we have a great time with your spouse, and he's basically, his whole skit was, hey, everybody, you're now looking at a man that has been completely defeated, and his wife completely controls every aspect of his life. And, it was a funny joke, but it was true, right? Why do we make things into such a big deal that really aren't? And that's one of the things that I really focus on, is not letting the small stuff bother me, and address it when I need to. But do I care if there's drama with, some parents that, like, they don't like that, my son made the basketball team and theirs didn't, and now there's drama there, and I don't care. Like, go ahead and have drama there. It doesn't bother me. Just don't impact my kid. Like, I'm good. Like, I just move on, right? I don't care. Talk about what you need to. But, it's just like those types of things that can consume people, and they get just so involved in the day-to-day drama that it just wrecks their life. It wrecks their stress, their ability to spend time for themselves, and ultimately their time to be happy.
I agree. And one thing that one of the things that Kira says all the time, I think we should get Kira back in the podcast as well, given she's going to be doing a monthly call with everybody. But one thing that she says, I remember it very specifically, both whenever we were in Ibiza and both whenever she came up and did the event in Belfast, is like, after she went through everything that she did and she realized that everything was a choice, the one thing that she asks as soon as she opened her eyes in the morning is, how do I want to feel today? And it gives her the choice of, like, she can decide and not let everything sort of impact. So that's the first thing that she asked herself in the morning, is like, how do I want to feel today? And I remember after that, Ram was doing a speaking gig a couple of days after, and I was like, how do you feel? He was like, well, I just asked myself how I wanted to feel, and this is how I want to feel, so this is how I'm going to feel. So number one, understanding that you're in control of those things and making those decisions to not, or try as hard as you possibly can to not let external forces leak into everything that you're doing. Because yes, it can be difficult, but if you make the conscious decision that you are going to try and feel better throughout the day, you will feel better throughout the day. Versus, like you said, if you're going to go, oh man, I can't, I have to go to fucking work today. Like, well, yeah, you have to go to work every day. It's just, well, how do you want to feel whenever you're there?
Well, I think it's a matter of putting the time in to make those changes, right? We're so used to being accustomed to what we're doing. And that's why a lot of people will be super unhappy in their jobs and they want to go to a different job, and they might find the perfect job that will change them forever, but they're so scared of the impact and change that it could have and the uncertainty that they just want to stay comfortable. And that's how our minds work, right? If we're able to survive day to day and we're doing okay, our minds are like, hey, cool. Like, why would you want to change that and risk something, in order to...
That's like across the board. So it's like, if you're like overweight and unhealthy, but it's fine and it doesn't really impact you, it's like, it's not that much of a problem for you. And the thought of the unknown or the change or the potential failure, whether that is in how you look and feel or going to the gym or your job, isn't bad enough. It's like, you will just live in that like comfort of like, well, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? I'm fine. It's bad, but it's not that bad. So I think it's not just in work or how you feel.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. It's all of the above. And those types of changes are difficult to do. Those types of changes require you to be cognizant of it. Those types of changes require you to be focused on it and make those small incremental changes and not be lazy about it, but they're all doable. And those are the things that I think, can really start to curve how you look at things and ultimately what you decide to invest your time in. And that's what we've always talked about. This is all time management, for lack of a better term. But most of the stuff that we consume ourselves with in time to keep ourselves busy may not be the best things for us. May not be things that are actually important. Maybe things that we need to reshift or look at doing differently. There's always the saying that's, the person that works, 150, hours a week or 100 hours a week versus the person that works 30 hours a week. The person that works 30 hours a week has figured out how to automate their job essentially to be more efficient, whereas the person that's working 100 plus hours or whatever is not efficient, is busting their butt. So, there are ways of looking at things. How do we make our lives more efficient, but also focus on things that are most important? And, whenever you get a new customer coming in and you're like, hey, how much time can you give? Oh, I can give 30 minutes a week. Cool. Let's give it 30 minutes a week. And we'll definitely be building up from there, trust me, because you have much more than 30 minutes a week, trust me. There's not anybody here that couldn't give an hour a week or 3 hours a week to resistance training or things like that. So, it's just prioritization. It's about what's important to you. And, if fitness, if going out and getting a walk or being, having some sort of mobility isn't a priority for you, you're not going to make time for it. And that's just literally what it comes down to. It's priority time. If you're happy being stressed, if you're happy being unhappy, then you're not gonna make time for it, right? Or if it's just how you are from a status quo perspective, and you don't want to change that, what will actually change in your life? And that's why, I always look at people that are just, stuck in a job and they're unhappy and, everything's going wrong for them. And, like life, it can be hard and life can be tough. Life can be some of the worst times you possibly have. But if you sink yourself into that and that's all you see, that's all you will experience. And until you bring yourself out of that and focus on making changes, you're going to be in the same situation day in and day out.
Agree. You know, similar people in this, like, it depends on how you think about or approach or what your mind is around the situation. Like, I know some of the people who have it like terrible situations, like are in awful situations, but are some of the most positive, upbeat people you'll ever meet. So it's like how you approach or how you think about the situation is what you sort of get out of it. We did want to. Well, I wanted to. You did mention stress. I want to mention stress because I went to I went on date night with Ryan on Sunday. We went for food. He was 25 minutes
I'm
late.
jealous. Very jealous.
He was 25 minutes late, so don't be. Are you jealous because I was there or because Ryan was there?
Me both. I mean, I wish that it was me going on a date with Ryan and then me going on a date with you separately.
Well, listen, he was 25 minutes late, so if he ever going to go on a date, we'll just be prepared for him to be late. But we went for food, and then we went to see Dr. Jordan Peterson. I realized that there are many mixed opinions about him. To be honest, I don't really know what my opinion is of him. I still, to this, I don't have a fucking clue what he was talking about. Like, he talks so much round in circles that it's actually a little bit incredible that he can like continue on these like I guess like attached stories and always bring himself around. But anyway, the one note that I took it was there for about 3 hours. The one note that I took that he said was stress is stealing potential future resources. So I came away with that as my only observation of anything that I understood that he said. And I spoke about it on the call on Monday with the Hacks group. And I was like, what do you think about this? How do you deal with stress? Like, what is your situation when it comes to stress? And I think for me, I understand that stress is a part of life. And it's not a case of we try and get you out of stress or get you away from stress, because it's always going to be there in some way, shape, or form. Yes, to some degrees it will be more, sometimes it'll be less, whatever. But I think the thing about it is number one, understanding how that impacts your body. Number two, understanding that if you don't start to make a change, the sort of negative long-term impact that will have on your body. And number three, what fucking things can you do to be less stressed or manage it a little bit more? And I think the thing for me is everybody's go-to was the gym, and it was like, oh yeah, I use the gym to take my stress out. And I'm like, while I understand what you're saying, I don't necessarily know if that's the right way to approach it, because again, the gym is a stress on your body, so it's a different type of stress. I will always say that the gym and doing hard things in the gym that I have willingly put myself through allows me to handle other stressors in life a little bit more. So I'll do hard stuff in the gym, and it keeps me like level in other aspects. And I know that if I don't train or I'm not training hard, that I don't have that same sort of like, I guess, mental balance. But everything that I looked at today, research looked at, when it comes to stress and how to improve, the two things that kept coming up. The first one was exercise. No surprise. Some sort of movement, exercise, weight resistance training, go for a walk, like anything to get outside. Actually, to the point where it can like rebuild parts of your brain that have been lost through chronic stress over time. And the second one was meditation. I'm not a big meditation guy, but I will practice breathwork quite often, whether it's doing the 555 Club with Sean, or I've been doing the Wim Hof method, breathing, if I need to change my state. And that's the best way that I can put it. If I'm sitting here and I'm like stressed and I'm like, well, I've got all this stuff to do, but I'm just doing that thing where I'm like looking at my computer going, I've got all this stuff to do, but I'm not actually getting anything done, which then in turn stresses you out more. The biggest thing that I will try and do is change my state. 3 ways I will do that. Go upstairs and do some cardio, which is like bottom of the list. I'm never doing that one. The second one is go out and go for a walk and just actually be outside. There was a couple of days last week I realized I hadn't actually physically been outside longer than going from the house to the car and the car to wherever I was going for like 4 days straight. And I was like, more time outside. And the third one is breathwork. So the Wim Hof method, breathing. I don't know if you've ever done it. Would recommend. Bit of a outer body experience, but good. Just lie in the office. Lie on the office floor here and just did it. And like instant change, you're a different person whenever you come back, and that allows you to come back to whatever you're doing in a different state. So if you're feeling stressed, find a way to change your state, find a way to manage it a little bit better. Improve your bullshit bandwidth is the best way I can put it.
It's funny. I didn't know much about Jordan Peterson either, and once I get those Facebook clips and like it just like shorts, and some of them are like, oh, that makes sense. And then you like listen to him fully. I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Absolutely, like
no idea.
No clue.
Yeah, like first, but there's like moments of like, hey, you should reduce your stress and be happier. I'm like, okay, I understand that. And then it's like this whole like, and then you like hear like a whole talk, whatever. I haven't listened to a whole talk before, but like I was like, I don't know what was going on right now, so I'm just gonna.
I couldn't even tell you what the topic was that he was talking about.
Yeah,
like I was laughing around. I was like, we were walking into the arena, and I was like, I wonder what like his pregame is. Like how's he in the dressing room psyching himself up? Like what the fuck's he doing? But yeah,
well, it's just like that Andrew Tate guy. Like I don't know who he is or anything about him, but like every once in a while you see like a clip pop up and you're like, that makes sense. But then you like listen to him like, oh my god, this guy's a horrible person. Like you're like, I don't know these folks much at all, so I can't comment one way or another.
He did mention him, and I don't know. Yeah, and in a strange roundabout way, but it was an obscure connection in some way. But yeah, like absolutely no fucking clue what he was talking about. Like still, like I asked Ryan, Ryan asked me like, "What's your biggest takeaway?" I was like, that he just has talked me around in circles, and I've no fucking idea what he was talking about. But it was good. Like, I mean, there's a lot of like deeper level thinking stuff, and like if you really went into it, like there could be some stuff in it. But like it was just a case of the way that he was putting his words together in sentences. Like, it's hard to compute at that same speed and level. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost something you would need to watch for a minute and like stop and like, okay, right, catch up and then go again. But yes, anyway, stress.
Well, stress don't do it,
but you can't avoid it. Stress is bad, but you can't avoid it. Find better ways to manage it. Breath work, cardio, go outside, meditation, go to the gym, send funny reels back and forward to Dave. That's another way I do it.
Definitely Instagram reels of different funny things. So yeah, that's when you sent me. I was cracking up. But all right, well, listen, hey, another great episode of this week of this podcast. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Catch us again, same time, same place next week. And thank you all for listening. Share us, We Hack Health, Discord, social media, everything else. Appreciate all your listeners, and always great to catch up and see your success. See ya.
See you next week.
Is episode, what was it, 135?
No, 115. This is why we'll remember. You do the odd numbers and I'll do the even numbers. Is that fair?
Okay.
Then we'll know.
Sounds good.